Well, welcome to the Suicide Monk, and my name is Britton. And today we've got Randi-Lee Bowslaugh, right? And you are an author. Is that correct? You've got several books out.
Just a couple.
You've put some pen to paper and really done some work on that. And one of the things that you reached out with was is this your current book, Goodbye Too Soon?
That was my last book. So I just had a new one release in December, but that was the one previous to it.
Okay. What's the new one?
It's called Thoughts of a Warrior.
Interesting. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so
Can you tell me about that? I don't know.
I can totally tell you about it.
All right.
So it is the sequel to actually my very first book that I published back in 2017 called Thoughts of a Wanderer.
Oh, I don't have that one down. Thoughts of a Wanderer. Okay, keep going.
And so the Thoughts of a Wanderer was a compilation of all the poetry that I wrote when I was super depressed as a teenager. So a lot of dark stuff, real dark stuff. And then so Thoughts of a Warrior it's still poetry, but the brighter side, the getting through it, the coming out the other side, because there is another side that you can come out of.
Yes. So, well, that makes me very curious. I'd be interested in reading these, actually. So talk to me a little bit more about Thoughts of a Wanderer and how you came into being with that. What sparked that, and what are the things? Tell me a little bit about your past and your story.
Yeah. So it came to become a published book because we were cleaning out the basement after one of our grandparents had died, and I found all this poetry that I wrote as a teenager, and I went, well, I don't want to throw it out because it's pretty good. I don't know, but it's just sitting in my basement, so that's why I put it together. And then when I was putting it together, I thought, you know what? I want to give some context to this book. So the beginning is a little bit about my story, which I'm going to share with you. But so that's kind of how that book came to be, is I was like, yeah, we need to start talking about this. My kid at the time, there was one night she was just crying her eyes out. Why am I so different? So my youngest has autism. And then of course, depression, anxiety, and But she was just crying. And I thought, oh, I've never actually told you that, I've also experienced all of this stuff that you're talking about and going through. So that's when I went, oh, I guess we got to talk about it now. And so now I never shut up about it. So as a teenager, that's really when all the depression and the suicide ideation all came into play in my life. So prior to that, I was a pretty happy, I was normal, I guess, what's normal, but a happy kid.
Sure.
And then as a teenager, the brain started doing what the brain's gonna do. And I just thought it was normal. So I thought it was normal that my thoughts would tell me that I'm a horrible person, that people would be better off without me, that I shouldn't be here. And any tiny little mistake I made was just the end of the world and people would hate me and I couldn't do any of these things. So I just lived with that for years and just thought that is how everyone's brain thinks, because nobody was talking about it. So this is going back to the early 2000s. And people weren't talking about it. If you saw a mental health episode on TV, that was a big deal. Right. So when I was going through life, I just thought, okay, everybody's brain is telling them to go and hurt themselves, that they are awful. So when my brain would start to do those things, instead of hurting myself, that's where the poetry came in. And so I would write so some of the poetry actually is about cutting myself, which I didn't do because I wrote about it, which is a much healthier and better outlet to do. But there are some very dark things in there. Exactly.
And that's the thing that gets a hold of us. I mean, that's the first step in it, is the desire.
Exactly.
The thought, and then that desire starts to build. So yeah, that's interesting.
What's that saying? Your thoughts become your desires become your behaviors become your actions. There's thoughts in there too somewhere. I don't know.
Huh.
There's some saying like that. I don't know. There's some saying like that.
I like it though. It's true.
Right? It's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I wrote extensively and when I was a teenager. And then it wasn't until into college, and that I started to take psychology classes, and I went, oh, not everybody is like this. Oh, something is kind of wrong with me. Uh-oh. I still didn't actually go get help at the time, even though I could clearly see that there was something wrong. Um, but with depression too, it ebbs and flows, right? It's not constant. You might have a constant for a while, but then you might have a better time for a bit. So, I was like, okay, well, I'm in a better place right now, so I don't need help. It's fine. It's totally fine.
Sure.
Except then it comes full circle and another depressive episode hits and you're back to suicidal ideation and considering what would be the best way to end it. None is the correct answer, but
Right.
that is where the brain goes. And so I had made plans. I had actually written goodbye letters to certain people, and I just luckily never did it, but I had decided that I was going to drive off a bridge. I'd picked which one. So where I live, there are lots of bridges around me, oodles of them. Yep. We live by a canal. Yep. I was working as an employment counselor at the time. I was mid-20s, and things were just, it felt like things were just falling apart. My kid was going through a rough time. She was diagnosed with autism, and I didn't know what to do or how to help her. The school was constantly suspending her because they wouldn't help her, and there just was so much happening that, well, you know what? If you just weren't here, then things would be much better. Oh, okay, brain. That totally tracks. That makes sense. So I decided, I'm going to go and I'm going to drive off this bridge, and I picked one that nobody goes by too often because, well, if they're not going to drive by it, then nobody can rescue me. If I'm going to do it, I might as well do it. So driving to work the one day, I just picked some different music to try and, I don't know, lift the mood, I guess, or whatever reason it was that I decided to put on a different playlist and do something a little bit different is what saved me, I guess, because I obviously did not drive off the bridge. Right. And at work, though, I did completely break down. At work, my one coworker, she was like, "Are you okay?" And I was not quite I wasn't quite crying yet, but I'm like, no, I don't think I am actually. So she brought me into her office, and then I started crying. So they sent me home. Somebody drove me home. And I was off for a couple of days. I actually took a leave of absence from there to try and deal with the mental health of what was happening and go and get help and get medication and do all the things. But that's the sort of short version.
Sure. How your daughter? How old's your daughter now?
She's 18 now. How
old was she at the time?
At that time, I want to say she was 9, 10. Anyway, it was a few years where things were kind of falling apart. When she was 9 was the worst. That's when that plan happened. But things started being difficult around age 8. She also had attempted suicide at the age of 9. More than one time in more than one ways. And we had spent a lot of time at the children's hospital nearby. She would get admitted usually they would do it for a week at the children's hospital. So she would get admitted there for a week at a time. Right. And of course I must be the reason why she's doing these things. And I am the horrible person. So even though I'm trying to help her, it's affecting, you can't, there's just so much noise going on in the brain, just so much noise and disaster thoughts going on that it's so hard to kind of sift through it all and try and be there for your kid, be there for your spouse, be there for work, whatever it is, that when there's so much going on, it's hard to find the quiet and the calm and actually live.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. That's 100%. What was the justification? And I've struggled with this. You were in a different situation than I was. I was already out of the home, and my kids were growing up, so I was already the absent dad. but you're actively in that mother role. What was the justification behind, in your mind, leaving your daughter with
Somebody else could
that?
do it better.
Hmm.
Somebody else could do it better than me. I must be the reason she feels this way. So if I wasn't there, she wouldn't feel that way.
Sure. Sure.
Right. So still in that mother role of trying to take care of her, but in a very twisted thought process.
Yeah. 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 How has that shaped you to into what? Because now you're 9 years later. She's 9 years older. She's a young woman, and going out into the world with something that's very difficult. Autism in and of itself can be very difficult for a lot of people, depending on the view and how they embrace that. And I think that's in general for most people in the struggles that they have. My newfound thinking is the very thing that you think is your debilitation might be your greatest gift. So, and I thought that was suicide ideology for me, and that's and evidence would say, yeah, that's part, but actually it's the underlying thing behind the ideology, and that's shame and anger. So I know it's really hard to hold hands with things like that, but this is her story. I don't want to ask about too much of.
She has given me permission to share certain bits and parts. So if you ask, if it's something I can't say, I'll let you know. If it's something I can, then I will answer.
Okay. How has that helped shape her? Like with going and walking towards death at such a young age, and now in this young adult phase with what would seemingly be a difficult struggle for anyone. How has she started to navigate that?
She's quite empathetic when her friends are in those situations as well. So then she can be like, no, don't do it. And she wants to check up on her friends, make sure they're okay. It took a long time before we trusted her with things. So what I mean by that is one of the ways that she attempted was taking a whole bunch of pills. So we got a safe in the kitchen, locked everything up. It took until last year before we would let her manage her own medications. And so I think it's shaped her by taking a longer look at what she needs to learn, what she needs to do. Because she went, we got her set up with a counselor, lots of therapies, that kind of thing. And even though sometimes she loves to say to me, well, I didn't want to be here anyways, when I say, well, I birthed you or whatever. I didn't want to be here. And I'm like, hey, well, you are. So she,
that seems to be the narrative that young people are telling each other right now. I didn't choose this. And you know what? You won the race out of a million different sperms. So you must have wanted to be here more than others.
That's exactly what my husband said to her.
I mean, it's, there's something about like, no, we wouldn't choose the things that have happened to us or the inflictions that happen upon us.
Yeah.
But those things they actually shape and form us. Every single person in this world suffers. Yeah. Every single person in this world falls short in some area in their life, and and it's the thing that they don't like about themselves. And you can take and we think, oh, well, they've got $1 billion, they're okay. No, they're not. Their struggle is just as real, because it's within us. It's within us to struggle with this light and this darkness that is brought into this world that we are brought into. And maybe that's the point, is that we learn to suffer well. And that's what my buddy says. He's like, I can ride bike with anybody because I know how to suffer. He's like, I can win all the time because I suffer the best. I'm like, oh, yeah. And it's true.
It's a nice way to look at it, actually. I kind of like that. Yeah.
Yeah. It keeps your heart calm. It keeps your spirit calm. It's like, now I can watch the unfolding of this very uncomfortable situation. And these things that I think hinder me only hinder me because I allow them to hinder me. All these things are outward reactions to the life, not the true nature of who I am.
Yeah.
Go
And
ahead.
I think that's why it's good that even though she was so young when she experienced it, I think if it would have happened as an adult, just because of how our services are available in this area, if that was to happen now, she would get no help.
Hmm.
Because she is 18. There is very little
Yeah.
help. Because she was so young at the time, there was various organizations and support there available. So
Yeah.
even though it was a horrendous time, I think it was there for a reason, because then she was able to get the help, support, the therapy, all of that stuff that she needed so that she could become a much more capable individual at 18. I mean, she still has things to learn. That autism
Oh,
piece makes
yeah.
things tricky, but I mean, I'm in my 30s and I still have stuff to learn. So,
Yeah. I mean, it's very difficult for anybody. And that's the thing I was telling my buddy the other day. They're about to have a baby. I'm like, after thousands of years, there's still no instruction manual. People have
right?
tried to write about it. You can't know how to raise a kid. It's like, why is it so difficult? But it's the one
Ever
thing,
changing.
it's ever changing, it's evolving.
Yeah.
It's an evolution of our mind and our hearts and our souls. Um, and every kid is different. And they're just
Yeah.
so vastly different. And we
Exactly.
have to learn as they learn. So, there's just no instruction manual for this life.
Yeah. If only.
Right.
But then it wouldn't be as entertaining as it is.
Well, and, I think that's one of the keys of, instead of like in school, they learn a certain way, instead of being taught how to how to navigate difficult situations. We don't teach life skills in school,
No.
and our homes are lacking it because
Hmm.
there's no manual. And it's like, okay, but we've kind of figured this out. And so if we can encourage and teach and empower kids in their quote unquote disabilities, then they're not disabilities anymore.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what we spent a lot of time doing, even when she was going through like the suicide ideation and all of that stuff. I was always going, okay, well, let's ask her. What does she think she needs? Because
Mm.
she's quite capable of telling us.
Yeah.
Whether or not we can do it, well, maybe, maybe not, but giving her the power of choice and to help her learn how to advocate for herself is going to be huge.
Yeah.
Because like I love my mom dearly, I do, but she never taught me those things.
Right.
So when I became 18, 19, I was still calling her, hey mom, can you make me a doctor's appointment? Because I didn't know how. I had no idea what I was doing.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to make sure that that's not going to be the case for my kid, even though I mean I still do make her doctor's appointments and stuff now, but she also lives at home still. But I'm still giving her more control and more guidance on how to go about these things than I feel that I got, because I want to make sure that she knows how to do them
Right.
as she grows older.
Yeah. A lot of times as parents, we're trying to not do what our parents do or did.
Yes.
And we tend to roll that ball way to the other side instead of trying to find the balance in it. It's like, I can make appointments for you, but I'm going to show you how to make appointments for yourself and start teaching you how to be,
Yeah.
responsible for yourself. Not only responsible for yourself, but learning how to respect yourself, because these are things you need. And that's what I've never understood. I'm just now learning about respecting myself, because I don't feel like I was given that throughout
Hmm.
life. And probably, and at some point, I didn't earn that. So I have this theory where if I start respecting myself and walking well and not giving power to this thing that debilitates me, then that's where I'll eventually earn that respect. And I think that's a beautiful goal. I think that's a beautiful thing. I have the deficit, I have all these little deficits, but I'm willing to walk with them until I know how to hold hands with them
Yeah.
and put them to rest and not let them control me. And that's how do we teach our children that, and how do we move forward in that? That's the, especially
Very tricky thing to do.
yeah, with a disability of, and I don't even like calling like autism a disability, because I think there's some high intelligence there, and high
Why?
empathy, and there's something there that's
It's I think disability, yeah, you say that word and people automatically think it's like they're not intelligent or something, but um, it's a disability in certain factors. So I also have autism, but you wouldn't know it unless I tell you. Usually, the more you get to know me, the more it comes out. But
Yeah, that's fair.
it's I can say, yeah, I have a disability. When it comes to talking to somebody, advocating for myself, things like that, no, there's no, I don't think there's much of a deficit there. But when it comes to maybe understanding, here's a good one, understanding a joke, I have a big old deficit there, right? So it's looking at which parts are a deficit, but also going, you know what? That's fine. Nobody is great at everything. So what if I have a little bit more deficit in one area, but I'm better at something else? Everyone's like that.
Right.
My brain just
Everybody.
thinks a little different, and
Yeah.
that's a tricky thing to do. But that's always how we're trying to approach it with Lev. Is that your brain is just a little bit different. It's fine. It's just different.
Yeah, and that's where people get debilitated by that thing that they think is the hindrance. It's probably one of the more beautiful things. It's just harder to navigate.
Yeah.
And because you understand that at such a level, you can now give that back when you start healing to other people that struggle with the same thing. Because
Mm-hmm.
we are not alone. I don't care who you are, you're not alone in any of this. There's somebody that has experienced or gone through a very, very similar situation.
Yeah. And that's what I always say when I get asked, "Oh, why do you write these books?" or "Oh, why do you talk about it all the time?" or whenever I go, because the worst thing was feeling like I was by myself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's bad enough knowing that my brain is against me and my brain is telling me things that are incorrect, but to also feel all by yourself,
Yeah.
that was the worst. And that's why I like to share to make sure other people know you're not alone. Maybe I don't know you in real life. Maybe I will never meet you in real life, but you're absolutely not alone in
Right.
the
Right.
situation.
Yeah. Oh, and that's a thing. Like, even I have to be careful because I do spend a lot of time alone. I'm literally alone a lot. So, I mean, I'm a nomad right now. I'm out in the middle of the mountains on, a few acres of land and no
Oh,
friends and no family, no, like, so I spend a lot of it. Like, it's almost like The Shining if I'm not too
oh dear.
careful. I'm just kidding.
No
Um,
work and no play.
right. But it was an opportunity for me to work, and that's what I wanted to do because this is part of my healing journey right now is finding out what's important to me and doing that thing, and it happens to be the podcast. And I was like, okay,
Yeah,
I
I
love this. I love doing it. I just didn't know that this would be. I thought Britain was going to have to go get responsible and get, which I did. I went and got a couple jobs and within a couple of weeks lost both of them due to car accidents. And
oh
so
no.
I'm back at the podcast. I'm like, okay. And then all the interviews. I'm like, okay. So
Yeah.
direction, even when we fight against the very nature and the very purpose of who we're supposed to be, it kind of, the universe, whatever it is, pushes us back into place. And I fight that all the time.
Well, just stop.
Right. Well, that's the thing. Watch the unfolding of the beauty that's before you. And that hardship is actually might be some of the beauty that you're missing because it's valuable information.
Yeah. And there's so many people in this world that are similar situations where it's like, I don't have anybody. What do you mean I'm not alone? I'm completely alone. I have nobody. Well,
Mm-hmm.
you're not, because of this wonderful big old internet thing we've got going on now, where you can connect with people even if you are crazy miles apart. You can connect. So like all my kids' friends are all online. They're all, the closest one is 5 hours away.
Mm.
And so that's not like, hey, you want to come over for dinner one day? Like,
Yeah.
so,
So do you think that's
it's,
healthy to have that disconnection of humanity?
I think there is a place for it. Because if you can't find your people close at hand, why not reach out further? Now, I don't think it's healthy if you're just constantly staying in the house 24/7,
Yeah. Right.
right? You still need to get out in the world. But if your friends are online, as long as you got everyone is I want to say friendly again, but that's just a silly word to keep repeating. But if everyone is compassionate towards each other, you have the similar interest, you're still basically hanging out the same way as you would if you were in person. I see nothing wrong with those friendships, and they will still cultivate and grow various social skills.
Yeah, I'm not saying they wouldn't. There's something,
Yeah.
I was talking to a therapist the other day, and we were talking about human contact.
Mm,
Because I spend so much time alone, I don't get human contact very
yeah.
often. I mean, physical contact, like touching
Yeah,
or
that's
how
what I
you doing,
figure.
buddy,
Yeah.
or a hug or anything like
Yeah.
that. And I definitely don't get that on an intimate level
Hmm.
from, having a relationship or anything like that. So, but I grew up this way. I grew up without a lot of that physical touch came in two ways for me. Either it was loving or abusive, and sometimes they were in the same mode,
Yeah.
like one back to back. Um, and that was so for me to get that, it's like, oh, I'm good. Like,
Right. Yeah.
you
Oh,
know,
and that's
I'm
just like my kid, and this happens a lot with autism. It seems like you either want to be squished all up, or it's like,
okay.
don't touch me.
Yeah.
Don't touch me. Right. So like with Lev, she's more of a don't touch me kind of person
Hmm.
anyways. And even I am too. Like my husband and I, we don't sleep in the same bed. I don't touch me unless I want to be touched. Like don't come
Fair.
near me. You
Yeah.
stay over there. So um again, it goes back to that everybody being different and
Yeah.
understanding what it is that you need or you want. I mean, I know there is studies out there that say human contact is important and human contact can do this and that, especially for babies. I think most of the studies are done with babies, but as we grow older, if we're like, no, please, I do not want to be touched, then just you stay over there.
When you see that with a lot of autistic
Mhm.
kids, is they don't want to be touched
No.
because it's an overstimulation in that sensory. I have that. I have high sensory issues. I didn't know that. I thought it was always just I was um, had mental issues, and that's why I
Hmm.
had this rage issue. But I discovered, I don't know, about a year and a half ago that sound actually sets me off. I didn't know
Okay.
that. Did not know that. Didn't
Yep.
know. I knew I was sensitive to sound, but I didn't. I didn't understand my reactive nature behind it.
Hmm.
Um, and I don't know what that is. But touch does the same thing for me too.
Yeah.
Um, taste. Oh my gosh,
Right.
my
Yeah.
palate is like super shallow. I'm trying to expand that, but it's very difficult because this takes over and it tells
Yes.
me all these things that are wrong with what's going on in my mouth. I'm like, oh, that sounds really, somebody's going to mean that. Um, so, and I just discovered this about myself. And
Mhm.
like you were saying earlier, we didn't have some of those therapeutic things in place to tell me that maybe that's a problem because I was being
Yeah.
overshadowed with trauma.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, just a traumatized kid.
Yeah. And I think a lot of times, at least back in the early 2000s and prior to, um, you didn't talk about this stuff.
Right.
You If you did well enough in school or you seemed to have one at least one friend, people questioned nothing. You were fine. Anything that happened, any kind of outburst, that was all just a behavioral issue. Um, and so that's the category I fell into. My grades were always, top of the class. I always had at least one friend, so I was fine. But I knew that I wasn't even when I was younger. And my mom even would, because people would say, oh, she's doing that because you spoil her. So if I would have, which we now know is an overstimulated sensory
Mm,
overload meltdown, but back then, oh, she's just having a temper tantrum because you spoil her and she's not getting her way.
right.
I'm like, that's not. My mom used to like, no, that's not what's happening. Like, there's something else. But back then, if you didn't fit a certain picture of what they thought was, like in my case, it was autism, which very much was a male dominated disability,
Mm,
which it
yeah.
still mostly is. So, way back when they started discovering it existed, they only did research on males. So that is why female rates of it are much lower. It's not that we don't have it; we just
Sure.
are different with it. So it wasn't until I was in my 30s and I finally got the diagnosis and I went, oh, see, this makes sense. This makes sense. And I feel like maybe had I known that, especially if my mom had known that when I was a kid, I could have got the different supports. Maybe I wouldn't have went down this giant rabbit hole of depression, or even if I did go down this giant rabbit hole of depression, we would have had other pieces to help figure it out.
Sure. Yeah. And that's the hope. And I think that's what's the hope is for the future, is that kids like you, kids like me, don't have to fall into those cracks. And we're learning more about these things that hinder us. I hate that word, disability. I hate it. I don't even like the word mental health, because everybody struggles. Everybody I've ever spoken to has a problem in their life that they struggle with on some immense degree. Whether they want to recognize it or not, whether they have the ability to ignore it or not, that's not the issue. The issue is that you can see it.
Yeah.
And we're so apt to see, I think labels make our government and people feel comfortable.
Yes, they love to label everything. And I was just actually doing a podcast the other day and we were talking about labels, and I said, unfortunately, without a label, you can't get the support.
You can't.
But then as soon as you have the label, society also looks at you differently.
Yep.
So you're stuck in a rock and a hard place. You need the label because you want the support, but you don't want other people to know about the label, which, I mean, it's nobody's business. But at the same time, I mean, it shouldn't be a bad thing.
And you can't walk into your work office and say, I have suicide ideation, because you're automatically labeled and put on watch and all this crap that when
whispers, all the whispers about you.
But the thing is, we're never very far separate. I'll bet you we're 3 to 4, maybe 6 degrees of separation of somebody that we know that has suicide ideation, somebody that's active in it right now, or somebody that's done it, or that they are part of it, or they have it themselves. And it's such a closed subject that it keeps people silent. And this disability of mine, quote unquote, this ideation, this thing that has hindered me my whole life, is actually probably one of my greatest gifts. I mean, to give away, because I understand a lot about the suffering. Thank God I'm coming out the other side of that. You know, it's not fixed, and it may not ever be fixed, but my resilience, my strength, that darkness, those things are, the darkness doesn't get to house anymore. Why? Because I get to make my own choices now and understand that those traumas in the past are not the traumas of the present.
I like the way you said that.
Yeah. Isn't that what we're really, I mean, if I look at my anger, it's the very thing that was put in place as a child, period. It was to protect myself, period.
And we do that a lot. We figure out what's going to help us. And so I was diagnosed with PTSD as well in my 30s when I was going back to therapy after my brother had died. And one of the things she said to me, because I was like, the big thing we were talking about at the time was that when somebody would raise their voice, I would get scared, and I would have a visceral reaction. Like I could feel everything inside of me, and I wanted to go run and hide and everything. And my husband didn't understand it. He's like, I'm not yelling at you. I'm just I'm telling you about a frustration I have. And I'm like, I know that, but I just can't. Right. And so that's why I was talking to my therapist about it. And she said, well, because as a little girl, that's what you did. You went and you hid when people were yelling and screaming. You went into your room. I'd always find my kitty cat, and my kitty cat would come with me. And I would hide in my room until such time that the yelling had stopped, that the fighting had stopped, whatever it was. And so I was like, wow, I never considered that I'm feeling this way because of how I felt as a child, because of the memories of that. And what we learn as a child, our defense mechanisms we learn as a child, they stay with us unless we work through them. Unless they're good. If they're good, then great, keep them. But if they're not, if they're hindering you in some way,
Yeah.
unless we work through them, they're going to stick with us.
Yeah. And there's I don't know that I can ever, I mean, we deal with in this human form, this degree of emotions. Well, those degrees of emotions we can't get rid of. Like I can't get rid of my anger, but I can walk with it differently. I can allow it to enter in my life differently. I realized that this morning I'm writing, and that's part of the reason I was so enthralled in my writing this morning. I realized how responsible I am for my reaction in that manner, and what it takes away from me when even nobody's around. Like I enter into shame, I enter into guilt, I enter into self-deprecations, I enter into this mode that takes me away from the true nature of who I am. And the longer I allow that, the more I miss out on. And instead of embracing, instead of saying and just feeling and letting it pass in and come in and pass through and walk with it and say, okay, is it justifiable anger? Well, no, ding dong, you just spilt some coffee.
Right? That's something that I worked on and I learned was, is this actually a reason to be upset? No. Like you said, you just spilled something. What was that saying? Don't cry over spilt milk. Oh.
Yeah.
But it's really easy, and I've started noticing and calling my mom out. So my mom lives with me. I started calling her out because that was something that I very clearly learned from her, is that when a little thing would happen, it would become such a big thing in her world. Oh, I'm so my puppy. I love him. He's adorable. But my puppy ate her bread off the counter. So she was very clearly upset, justifiably upset, but it's an easy solve, right? We'll make more toast. It's an easy solve. So to be over the top upset and on the verge of tears is a little much, right? So but that's how I used to be, is every little thing would be this giant thing, and learning to go, can I fix that? Is this justifiable, or can I fix this easily? Like, is this, yeah, I can just get a new cup. I can get new toast. Like, whatever. I'll put on new socks. I hate stepping on stuff that's wet. Ooh, that's one of my sensory things. But I can get new socks. It's not the end of the world. It feels like it, but it's not. And learning and asking yourself those questions, I think, is such a big help.
Yeah. And understanding, like, especially with me, I think I could almost account it to overstimulation all the time. Like almost every time I'm just like, something happens and boom, it's almost instant because my body has remembered this past trauma. And I'm like, okay, so I'm actually starting to rewire my body now, instead of, because my brain knows that the reality is that doesn't require that reaction. My body doesn't know that. And that's what I'm discovering right now, is like, I know all that. Like, part of this, the biggest thing in healing that I found is, if you can recognize it, then you can start doing something about it.
Yes.
Well, I'm like, well, I've recognized my anger since I was a boy, and I haven't been able to do anything about it. And there's that element of learning to walk with it, and understanding that my body's reacting from early traumas, and that was protection. Now I'm starting to understand it. So, I mean, all I can hope is that, or all I know healing is on the horizon in that area. I know it in the depths of my soul. And it's because I'm starting to understand the deficit that I allowed it to be in my life. And I allowed it to take from my life.
I think sometimes, as you're saying that, you're making me think of my brother. So my brother died 3.
That's what I was going to ask you.
I think it's 3 years ago.
Is this book about your brother?
It is like Goodbye Too Soon. It's about my brother. He died by a drug overdose.
Okay, yeah, so let's go into that. Let's talk about that some more.
Yeah. So as you were talking about that, and you're talking about basically taking responsibility for what, you can change things or whatever. That was something that always eluded Brandon. That's my brother's name. It always eluded him that, he could take responsibility for some of it and find better outlets than using drugs. It was always someone else's fault. And I get it. He was picked on really bad in elementary school, high school. My mom tried to move him schools thinking, hey, a fresh start, maybe that'll be better, but kids are
Good
mean.
mom.
And so that continued on. We have different dads, and my dad was a real lovely individual to him. Yep, let's say that. So he wasn't that great to me either, but he was much worse to my brother.
Yeah.
And so that obviously didn't help. He didn't have like a male role model. And when you start getting into,
Where was his dad?
His dad had left. So my brother was older. His dad had
Okay.
left. I have never actually met him. So this is actually one of the really probably big trauma factors for him. His dad left when he was quite small, because we're 4 years apart. So somewhere in that time frame, his dad left, and my mom started with my dad, and then they got separated. So my dad, he used to come with me to my dad's every other weekend. Everyone else in my family just accepted Brandon as one of their own. My dad was just not a very good dad, like even to me, like I said, but like my cousins, my aunt and uncles, they all just, that's your cousin, that's your nephew. Like everybody else was cool.
Right.
My Nana always, even after Brandon stopped coming with me, my Nana still always gave a birthday card, always gave a Christmas card, like always asked about him. And then in grade 8, his dad magically came back into the picture. I still never actually met him, but he magically came back into the picture. He lived a couple hours away, though. He didn't live in the same area. He lived a couple hours away, and my brother went and lived with him because my brother wanted to get to know his dad. And my mom was like, hey, well, you're old enough. You're having difficulty here at school. Maybe that change of scenery, maybe it will help at, right? And then his dad started saying, oh, it's your mom's fault. It's your mom's fault that you didn't get to know me. She took you away from me. And so then he started being really mad at my mom. Well, then on the grade 8 graduation day, his dad showed up to the graduation. My mom was there too. Luckily, she was there too because his dad left. He saw that on the diploma, my mom had changed his last name to her last name, which makes sense. She was the one raising him. So his dad left because she changed his name. It just left him there. And so that was, I guess, when he must have realized, okay, well, you were lying to me saying mom was the reason why. It's you're a jerk. But again, that just shows abandonment again.
Oh, yeah.
Right? More abandonment,
Yep.
more trauma. So there's just, there was a whole lot of issues, a whole lot of trauma. And it just is so heartbreaking that he never had the opportunity. I shouldn't say opportunity. The opportunity was there. He never had the mindset, I guess, to say, hey, yes, there's been lots of trauma. Yes, I've had a lot of crappy things happen, but maybe I'm going to go talk to somebody and they can help me walk with it. I love your saying, walk with it. But unfortunately, that was not the case for him.
Do you think that's his fault, though?
I don't think it's his fault, but I also don't think it's anyone else's fault.
Right.
So it's kind of weird. I don't think.
We're not trying to place the blame, but it's like,
yeah.
I mean, that is probably a poor question. But I've been there. Like I've been blinded, so blind by trauma that I can't see outside those walls.
Yeah.
That they justify the anger, the frustration, the drugs, because that's the only thing that would shut the monkeys up long enough for me. It'd keep me disabled enough to keep them disabled enough.
Yeah.
And that's, drugs tell us the lie, but we're also reinforcing that even when the drugs aren't there. And
so I think,
yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. Just as you're saying that, it's making me have different thoughts. So I think he obviously made a choice to not seek help, but I don't think there's always necessarily a choice to do drugs, right? So like you were saying, it was the way to shut them up, to shut up the voices. So what else was he supposed to do when he didn't know other options?
Right.
And I think that's why it's so important for people like you who have these podcasts and things, so we can talk about it, because again, when he was growing up, it wasn't something talked about. And then by the time people were talking about what other choices or what other options there were available, he was already so into drugs that how do you even process what somebody else is saying when your mind is so messed up on the drugs? So it's not, I don't think it was a conscious decision, but it was definitely something that was more of maybe a fault of omission, perhaps, right?
Yeah.
You don't know what you don't know. And if
Right.
nobody was there and able to properly explain to him in a way that he could understand that there was various choices or various other opportunities to learn to deal with it, then he's never he wouldn't know. But
Yeah.
you can't blame your trauma forever. And that was something that, when he died, I struggled so much with the guilt of what could I have done to
Right.
prevent it. So
Okay.
that's why I'm saying very much it's his choices. But at the same time, I don't think drug addiction is a choice, but it's his choices that kept him from finding other help.
Right. And I've been in the depths of, not necessarily that depth of addiction. I haven't, but a lot of times, I got sober when I was 18. I checked myself into a treatment facility, but I was drinking on the weekends, getting drunk and smoking weed. I was afraid of cocaine. I did a little bit of acid, but it was really difficult to get, and a little bit of mushrooms because they were difficult to get. But I was so tormented in my mind that, I'd lay in bed and pretend I had a gun while I'm reading my Bible and over pull the trigger, but I didn't have the guts to take my life. And so I made a choice to get sober and see if that would do it. Well, it didn't. What I found out was it wasn't drugs and alcohol that were my problem. I was my problem.
Mm-hmm.
What it does to a lot of addicts, and I've seen it over and over, is it takes them, you either live, it either takes you to the bottom where you have basically no choice. You get sober or you die. So you live, you die, or you go to jail. And those are pretty much the three choices that most addicts are, faced with. But they generally don't get to getting better without going through those near-death experiences or those repetitive incarcerations. And because this thing has gotten a hold of them so tight, they can't see past it. It's just got the drugs and alcohol get their hands wrapped around your neck, and you think it's just cutting off your oxygen. You think you're thinking straight. You're not.
Yeah.
You can barely breathe.
So that's, I think, where he was at in his time, and he just never got to that third option, because he definitely did the go to jail part a bunch of times.
Yeah.
But that third option didn't quite pan out for him.
Yeah. And I'm sorry to hear that. That's too bad. That a lot of us are faced with those things in our families, whether it be ourselves or somebody in our family. It's a lot of times. I've seen my side of the family, my mother's side of the family, go through a lot of addiction and struggle and losing, and it costing so much. And some of them have been really fortunate to get that back.
Yeah.
Some have not.
Yeah. And I think it's so hard for those of us who are left behind as well, because, and I mentioned it, there's this time where you go, what could I have done? And there's this shame and self-blame of, I should have tried harder, I should have done something else. But ultimately, again, it's their choices, for whatever reasons. But there's a lot of forgiveness you have to do for yourself when someone else dies, because I wish I could have done something more, but ultimately there was nothing I could have.
Right. So how does this book go through kind of your pain and your processing in that?
Yes. So the book, it the very first chapter is about getting the phone call saying that he was dead. And then we kind of delve into a little bit of his life, because I think a lot of times people with addiction, they become addicts in the eyes of society. They're not people anymore. They're just those addicts over there, the druggies. So I wanted to give the readers a sense of who he was as a person, as a human being. And so, yeah, we go into that. And then I also give some background on what addiction is, because it is a mental illness. It is something that is in the DSM-5. So I kind of go through that. I go through risk factors like genetics. You're talking about seeing it in your family. And yeah, a lot of families will have multi-generational addiction, because it is one of the common factors. And then I go into helping my mom plan the funeral, going through what the funeral was, the burial, and of course, all the emotional ups and downs and the guilt and the shame and the all of that part is in there too. And then finally the coping strategies at the end of how it all comes together, so that those of us who are still here can move on. Move on's the wrong word. Continue on without
like
them.
That. Yeah. When did he pass away again?
I want to say it's 3 years, but I think maybe now I think this is going to be the 4th year.
Okay. And when did you write the book?
I started it probably about 6 months after he had died. And it got published on the anniversary of his death. That was my mom's idea, actually. It was funny. When I first told my mom I was going to write this book, she was so against it. So against it. I don't know exactly what she thought, but I think she thought that it was going to paint him as a bad person and that she was a bad mom and things like that. And that's absolutely not the case. My mom was fantastic. But, life throws a lot of curveballs and crappy parts at us. So she did the best that she could with the knowledge that she had, but that doesn't mean that she's going to be perfect. Nobody is. Right. So when she actually started reading the book and seeing what was coming out of it, she's like, okay, actually, no, this is good. This is good. And she goes, okay, let's do it on his anniversary. So it came out on the 1 year anniversary of his death. And my mom goes, we have to go to the cemetery. And she was so excited to bring Brandon's book to Brandon. And so we took pictures with the book, with the gravestone, because it was like he was holding his thing. Because he always, deep down in his core, you were talking about, your core purpose. If he would have been able to recover from the addiction, I think his core purpose really was helping other people. Like, he always loved doing that. He literally gave somebody the shirt off his back one day. He's like, I'm just going home and I have another one. Here, you take this. Like, literally, he was just a genuinely nice person underneath it all. And so I think that sharing and that's another reason I shared his story, because I think that he would have wanted other people to hear it, wanting them to hopefully find their way out of addiction.
Wow. Kind of got me there.
I used to cry when I talked about it, but I've talked about it so much now, so it's not, I'm feel it a little bit, but not so bad. Yeah. And actually the cover of the cover is red, because that's his favorite color, and the urn on it is actually the urn that he was buried in. Nice. Picture of it. So
yeah, I'm sorry for your loss. That's a tough one, especially when something like that takes so much. And it's such a lie. Addiction, it's such a lie. You see it all the time, and it's too bad. I'm a little choked at the moment, so
that's okay. That's okay. Yeah. So, will you gather yourself? I'll keep talking. So I have a podcast too, where I talk to other authors. We're talking about mental illness, and so one of the things that I've done with Brandon in mind is part of my merch store. I've taken his art. He was an amazing artist. It totally skipped me. I can't draw worth anything. But my mom can draw. My brother could draw. my kid can draw. I can write the words though.
There you go. You got the
um,
artistic, the other side.
so the one really sad thing was, we went into his room to clean up. So he rented a room in a house. There was nothing there worth keeping. Everything was pretty much garbage.
Right.
But there was some artwork that we found, a little bit of artwork. So I took that and I put it on some of the merch, and I give back a portion of it to the place that tried to help him, the local recovery place.
Oh,
So
nice.
it's, again, a way just to keep his kind of memory alive, and use what he was able to produce for something better.
You ever thought about doing some sort of like foundation for him or anything like that
I
to
just don't.
support your local
Yeah.
recovery
Yeah,
place?
I definitely I've spoken about it at like events and stuff, and we'll share it that
Hmm.
way. I think there's a lot of foundations already out there in
Sure.
the world, really, that
Yeah.
if we spread it too thin, it's like, hey,
Yeah.
where am I donating to now?
Right.
But I try to, and that's why I try to take the sales from the merch and things like that, and put it towards something that's already in existence, because
That's fair. I like
I
that.
don't think I have the all of the skills to start all that. I'm sure I could figure it out, but it seems very
Maybe,
overwhelming.
maybe someday. You never know.
Maybe. Yeah, exactly.
Well,
You never know what's gonna happen.
well, it's funny, and I was talking to somebody about this. When you start to do what you love, creativity is born. So, and it doesn't matter if you get paid for it or not. It's when you start doing the things that feed your inner spirit, that thing that your it's the passion that comes out of you, and then that's where creative ideas start to happen. And they're involuntary creative ideas. It's just creativity starts to be born and starts to blossom, and you're like, oh yeah, yeah, okay. And you're doing the dishes, and some weird thing pops in your head, like, okay, I got to do that right now. And
That totally happens.
yeah, it's beautiful, because then you're entered into this. You're not trying to change the very fabric of the creative nature of what you're doing. You're doing it because it's being born out of you, and it's such a beautiful process that I never really understood. I always wanted to draw, so I can draw pretty decent. If I spend 40 hours, I could draw your face, and
Yeah.
it would be nice. But it takes me a long time and a lot of methodical pencil work, a lot of
Yes.
erasing, and being who I am, I don't know that I have that kind of attention. But now that I'm doing like stuff like this, and this creative nature is blossoming in a different way in me, and I love that. So that's really cool. And I'm so sorry that your brother didn't get to discover the true nature of really who he was and really believe in that,
Hmm.
because I think that's the essence of life, is seeing yourself for who you really are. And it's not the outward reaction to the world or those responses that you learned. It's the very nature of the inner being of, I'm kind, I'm generous, I'm formidable, I'm
Hmm.
loving, I'm all these things that are so beautiful and positive. And we miss that because we grow up in protection or disgust of ourselves. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, we just got real heavy there.
Welcome to the Suicide Monk. It
Right?
gets heavy here.
I thought we were gonna be super happy the whole time, so that's good.
Yeah. Well, you never know what happens. So,
Nope.
tell me a little bit about a few of your other books, like A Little Scare, A Mother's Truth,
Yeah.
Be Selfish.
Yes. Okay, so A Little Scare. Um, I love all things horror.
Oh,
So it is a collection of short, scary stories.
nice.
Yes, I love them. They're real nice, quick reads for like 5-10 minutes, and they're just, yeah, just to get you through to
What,
the next monotony of your day.
what was there was Tales of the Crypt.
Oh, I loved that show.
Always little horror stories. That's basically
Yes.
what it kind of reminds me of. Oh,
Yeah.
you just go through these little scripts and get the imagery and the
Yeah.
creative nature behind it, and then
That's
move on.
exactly what I was going for with it.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's
Yeah.
awesome. Love it.
And in there, each story has it starts with just a picture, and as like the little cover page for each story.
Sure.
My kid drew them.
Nice.
Yeah.
Do you have a illustration of that?
If you give me one hot second,
Sure, sure.
there's the first one.
Oh, I can't hardly see. Oh, back up just a little bit. What is that of?
So the story is about camping.
The
So they're at a
shades.
campfire.
Okay.
Yeah, and then let's see. This
When
one's a
did
little
she
bit
illustrate this?
darker. I want to say she was maybe 13 at the time.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
so this
love it.
one's about a circus, obviously.
Welcome to the sun. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Um,
How long has that book been out? So she was
um,
13. When did you decide to publish that? I mean, that would have been the...
okay, no, she was probably doing the picture. She was probably 14, so it came out. No, she was probably 13 when she did it. It came out in 2021. So
Okay.
yeah,
That's awesome.
and then here's one more. There's 10 stories in there, but here's one more picture.
Oh, nice. Is that Betty Boop? It looks like Betty.
She really loves Betty Boop, so a lot of her style is
Kind of that.
similar to that.
Nice.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
Betty Boop and anime. She's got those two styles, and
Huh.
that story there, it's called Beauty Comes at a Price. She's actually came up with. It's funny, that story came because she was drawing a completely different picture, and I was like, oh, I know a story for that picture. And then she drew a completely different picture for the book instead of just using that one that the story idea came from. And I'm like, okay, whatever. You're the artist. You do
Did she
you.
get royalties?
No, but I do pay her up front for each
Oh, okay.
picture.
Good. Good.
I don't get a discount. So
That's fair. And you don't get the discount.
no.
Friends and family discount does not apply, Mom.
No, that she literally told me that the one day. And I'm like, wow, that's really nice of you.
Get paid what you're worth. Yeah.
Wow. All right. But no, I pay her for all her art. She's actually designed 2 of my tattoos as well, one of my husband's tattoos, and we get a lot of compliments on them too, which is
That's
cool.
awesome. That's so cool.
She did the pictures for I have a kid's book. It's called Whoopi Goes to the Hospital, and it's about a little stuffed dog. And she did all the art for that, and it's a completely different style. It's all cutesy, little cartoony stuff, and it's so good. I love it. And actually, there's been 2 Woofy. So Woofy is a character that can continue on to teach kids different things about life.
You say Wolfie. I thought you were saying Whoopi, like Goldberg.
No, Woofy, like woof woof a dog.
Okay.
And so it's a cute little stuffed dog, and she come up with the whole thing for him. So there's 2 Woofy books out. Woofy Goes to the Hospital, and then Woofy Says Goodbye, about somebody losing their hamster because she lost her hamster. And she is currently working on the pictures, which it takes her at least a year to get them done. So it's been in the works for a while, where they go to the dentist.
Nice.
It's pretty cute. Yeah.
Well, sometimes creativity takes a while. So
right, exactly. And she has absolutely no concept of what a deadline is or anything like that. That's part of the autism part there, learning what time management is.
Right.
But that's okay. It's no rush. It'll get done when it gets done, and then I'll work on the next one.
Let me ask you something about the autism. Is because I was thinking about this the other day in my own life. I didn't do very well in school because I was learning behavior, appropriate behavior from other people. And when it got around to school, that's just a whole different level of cramming my brain into something that, I go to home, it wasn't safe. I go to school, it wasn't safe. So I just started watching people. I spent a lot of time on the playground watching people to learn appropriate behavior so I could fit in, because I didn't fit in. Wow. Interesting. Yeah. So I can't remember my question now. Like I'm like, oh my gosh. Then when I said, it's a different thinking about it and saying it out loud.
It is. I have definitely had those trains of thought happen all the time where I'm like, I got something and I'm talking and then wait, where to go?
Yeah. I'm like going
what you're saying there, learning behaviors by watching other people. That's 100% what I did. 100% what Love's done. I think it's it's something that kids do when they're really little. But it's super common as we continue to grow when there is some kind of developmental disability involved, because how else are we going to learn it if we don't watch it from other people?
Mhm.
Problem is when we're watching the wrong people and
Well,
then picking
yeah,
up the wrong behavior.
yeah. I still, up until probably 2 years ago, was still had very much would watch people to understand behavior
Hmm.
for my own behavior,
Yeah.
so I could be appropriate. And then I flipped the world off and started this, and
Well, you
realized that
seem to
I'm
be good
okay.
at it, so it's fine.
Yeah, but I just realized that I'm okay with who I am. Like I don't need to be anything different than what I am. I didn't even know what my own laugh was for a very, very long time, up until 2, 3 years ago, um, because I would adopt somebody else's thing
Yeah.
because it was catching or appropriate or it
Yeah.
sounded good. And so I became this. I always thought I'm just a chameleon. And as I talk to people, I'm like, well, maybe I have underlying things that I don't really understand.
Yep. You could.
Some,
You might.
yeah, some of these things that people call disability, but I've I have always just had to manage it.
Yeah. Yeah. Disability is becoming a difficult word to use. I don't
Yeah,
mind using it because I'm trying to, I hate saying take the word back. I'm trying to just make it less stigmatized.
yeah,
Um, because disability doesn't mean that you don't have abilities. It
capability,
means that they're
right?
different than other people.
Yeah,
But oftentimes when you say the word disability, people assume, and wrongly so, that you mean that they're meaning some kind of serious deficit. Something is
right.
very much wrong, where it's
Yeah,
no, it's just different.
yeah,
But saying different ability is weird to me. Weird.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's true. What's the A Mother's Truth about?
So that was actually the second book I ever published. Love did the cover for that, and she was probably maybe 9 at the
Okay,
time. So I got her to do the cover because it's actually about raising her
okay,
from when I was pregnant up until grade 6. I guess I need to write part 2 now that she's old. But
right,
in going through the hardships of what it was like to parent a kid that people refused to believe you when you said no, something is different, something is wrong, like something, I need help. And not getting the diagnosis till she was 8. And then of course the school still not really helping, and just the struggles of all of that. Because again, we said it before, the worst thing is feeling like you're by yourself.
mm-hmm.
And going through that, I mean, I didn't feel I was by myself. I thought my household was by itself. Like my husband and I, we were just like, we don't know anybody else. And now I've, most of my friends, I'm like, oh yeah, your kid has this and your kid has that. But you kind of find your people when it comes to that. But when she was little, yeah, people I thought were my friends all of a sudden slowly dropped off because, well, no, I can't just find a babysitter for her. It's not that easy. I
Right,
need somebody specialized. I need a lot more than just, this kid down the street to babysit. Um, so yeah, Mother's Truth is all about that. And it's actually got 2 stories in it. Mine, like I said, and then my best friend, Renata, she wrote about her son, who is the same age as Lev, and similar struggles, but very different. So you kind
mm.
of get,
Two
the
perspectives on
daughter's
that.
version, a son's version, and
Yeah,
can glean something from there. And then at the back of the book, we put in some resources that we learned over the years. So they used to tell you to keep an ABC chart. So what was the action, the behavior, and the antecedent, the behavior, the consequence,
what's an
and
antecedent?
what happened just before the behavior.
Okay,
Yeah. So
thank you.
basically, what triggered it?
Yeah,
So what triggered it, what happened, and the consequence of it. And so we put like a little chart in there, and then some other little resources that we found would be helpful, because whenever you would go to a new assessment or a new doctor, they would ask you to do the same thing you've
mm.
already done. So
Yeah,
we figured if we put some pages in there for that, then people can just photocopy it and just here you go, because it's annoying to rewrite everything.
it is. It is. Yeah, well, I get it. I go to the doctor all the time, and I have to redo it all the time.
So
it's probably
fun.
not on the same degree, but I get the frustration with it. So
Yeah.
yeah, well, that's cool. That's really neat. So we're gonna close out here soon, but I want to know about Be Selfish.
So that is a self-care journal. I couldn't find any one journal that just encompassed what I wanted for just having like a self-care moment. So instead, I decided to make one. So there are 365 activities in there. There are 7 different sections because I like different stuff. I like to mix it up. So there's 7 sections. There's journaling prompts, challenges, exercises. So I'm also a certified personal trainer. So
Love it.
I put little mini 15-minute routines that you could do. Of
Nice.
course, disclaimer, talk to your doctor first. Some
Right.
recipes. So there's different recipes in there you can try.
Nice.
Coloring pages, word search, and something else. I can't remember the 7th category off the top of my head right now. But basically 7 categories. And then in each category, there is 52 activities in it. So
Wow.
that you have something for every day of the year. And you can either do all one section at a time, or you can be like, hey, Mondays is journaling days, Tuesdays is recipe day, like just kind of mix it up. And I wanted something like that and I couldn't find something. So I made one.
I love that. That's fantastic. And where can all your books be found?
On Amazon, of
On Amazon.
course.
Okay.
And just if you go on Amazon and you just type my name in, Randi-Lee Bowslaugh, everything will pop up.
Oh, that's great. I love that. Randy, before we close out, do you have any um, things that you would want to leave us with that you've profoundly learned that's maybe changed the course of your life and that
That's a whole
ideology?
nother episode.
Well, let's get into it.
um, so I would just say that be true to yourself. Figure out who that happens to be, because that all on itself is very tricky. And then the other thing that I say when I close out my show, and it's become kind of my catchphrase because I think it's just so important to keep saying, is that the only way to end the stigma of, in this case, suicide ideation, is to speak openly and honestly. And I think that's why it's so important that you have guests that are open and willing to talk about it. And then, hopefully your listeners will glean some kind of assurance from it that they are not all by themselves, because they are absolutely not all by themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. I hope you're right. And I see it. I get to see some of that. And it's really just about finding that one person that needs it today. And, as you find that one person, you start finding many. And then you have a community of people that understand each other. So, well, thank you very much for being here, Randy. It's Randi-Lee Bowslaugh. Sorry.
It's all
Jeez,
good.
I'm an idiot. No, I'm not an idiot.
Yeah.
I just say stupid things sometimes. And she's the author of Goodbye Too Soon, and that's what this really sparked this, and that's about her brother who passed away. So, Randy, thank you so much for being here and being on the Suicide Monk. Really appreciate it, and really appreciate you being here. So, we'll see you on the good side.